Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy. Well, Jeff, with summer in full swing, people look at different ways as a means to escape it all. Amusement parks, backyard parties, and the movies. Tonight, we bring you another report revealing the current state of a system in mass confusion. More than 70 people were shot in Aurora, Colorado, leaving 12 dead and at least 58 injured. A state that just 13 years and 3 months earlier experienced a massacre of great proportion at Columbine High School, April 20th, 1999. As people awaited in anticipation of the midnight screening of a fantasy film, no one ever expected that they would leave injured, or for some, not at all.
Later that day, authorities were just beginning to remove the bodies of the dead, and many of the wounded still lay in the hospital in critical condition. The suspect in the case is 24-year-old James Egan Holmes, is under arrest after willfully surrendering to the police. Police stated that he booby-trapped his apartment before heading to the theater to carry out the attack. Yet, in the midst of all of this, authorities have not been able to determine the motive for this senseless attack.
Holmes apparently dyed his hair orange like one of the characters in the film. Now, a short while into the film, witnesses notice Holmes leave through an emergency exit after receiving what looked like a phone call. Out that door was his car. There, he put on full body armor, a helmet, bulletproof vest, leg protection, and he armed himself. According to Aurora Police Chief, he had an AR-15 assault rifle, a Remington 870 shotgun, and a .40 caliber Glock handgun. The amount of rounds fired, the chief said, is unknown.
Now, at 12:30 a.m., the suspect came back in through the emergency exit, lobbed several canisters into the audience that released smoke into the theater, and then he randomly began shooting. Everyone began to panic and scurry out of the exits furthest away from the gunfire. Some witnesses say the suspect remained calm throughout the whole ordeal and never said a word.
At 12:39, 911 was flooded with calls as hundreds of people fled for their lives. It was reported that one of the shots went through the wall and into an adjoining theater, wounding at least one person. 90 seconds after that first call was received, the first police officer arrived on the scene. There were so many wounded, police began loading people into their squad cars and rushing them to various nearby hospitals. Several people who were later interviewed were still extremely shaken by the experience and were in tears as they gave their testimonies.
As of now, police still don't have a motive for the latest in a series of extreme acts of a seemingly blatant disregard for life. Authorities in Washington say it is believed that Holmes had no accomplices and no connections to any so-called radical groups. The only run-in he had had with police was for a single speeding ticket. A CBS Justice correspondent, Bob Orr, reported on the gunman and his weapons purchased just prior to this horrific event.
Orr said James Holmes was completely under the radar. Yet sources say over the past few months, he assembled a deadly arsenal. Multiple guns, body armor, bottles of chemicals, and homemade explosive devices. Sources also said 4 weapons found at the crime scene, were all legally purchased between May 22nd and July 6th at 3 Colorado gun stores.
Now, evidence teams are still processing the crime scene, but with 71 victims hit by gunfire, law enforcement officials suspect the gunman fired at least 100 rounds, maybe more. Police say Holmes meticulously planned the assault. He apparently surveilled the theater and pre-staged his car and weapons near an access door.
Police have searched social networking sites for clues, but have not found any information helpful for the investigation. Holmes stopped cooperating with police shortly after his arrest and got a lawyer. Having no prior criminal record, it has been extremely difficult to explain the motive behind this massacre.
The story of the 24-year-old James Egan Holmes is of a highly intelligent young man from northern San Diego with goals, determination, and a family who tried to give him the best in life. CBS News interviewed some of the people with different perspectives on James. Graduating with honors in neuroscience in 2010 from the University of California, Riverside, Tim White, the university's chancellor, said academically he was at the top of the top. He really distinguished himself from an academic standpoint during his 4 years with us.
Julie Adams, a neighbor around the corner whose son played soccer with James, gave us insight about the community. She said, "People come here because of the school district. So lots and lots of kids are here for that very reason. And obviously his parents wanted to give him the best, and that's why they lived here."
In high school, he won a competitive position at a rigorous science boot camp and an internship in neurobiology at the prestigious Salk Institute.
Another neighbor who lived next to Holmes for 10 years, Tom Mee and his son Anthony, describe Holmes as an ordinary, typical American young man.
While having attained his degree from the schools of higher learning, the only employment he could find upon returning home was at McDonald's. Neighbors say he seemed frustrated. He had been attending graduate school in Colorado, but dropped out in June.
Now we're going to go ahead and turn our attention over to the victims of this attack at the midnight show. Now, at the time of this report, most have not been identified. There were so many shot that they were rushed to University of Colorado Hospital by ambulance, police cars, and private vehicles. Among the 12 who died is a 24-year-old woman known as Jessica Redfield, who just a month earlier had been witness to another shooting spree several hundred miles away at a shopping mall in Toronto, Canada.
Her untimely death shocked those who knew her, the aspiring broadcaster. Adrian Dater, a sports writer and colleague of Jessica's, told CBS's Bill Whitaker, "You knew something was there. You knew there was a spark in her, that she was going to be something someday."
Miss Redfield knew the value of being alive since she had narrowly escaped being killed in the shopping mall shooting in June. She wrote on her blog about her new perspective on life shortly afterwards. She said, "I was shown how fragile life was. I saw the terror on bystanders' faces. I saw the victims of a senseless crime. And now I truly understand how blessed I am for each second I am given."
A native of Texas, she was born Jessica Gowie, and her brother, Jordan, felt it important that everyone should remember her name and the names of those who died in the massacre instead of the man responsible.
He said, "I don't want that gunman's name spoken. I want people to remember the name of Jessica Gowie or another victim's name. I want them to remember what they stood for and what their life meant." Being so far away from that fatal scene in Toronto, Jessica could not have imagined, as she waited while the midnight movie was delayed, that she would not live to see it.
Katan, this turned out to be a very tragic event for Jessica Gowie, as well as many others. Now, sadly, these acts of random violence have been increasing at an alarming rate. The world is left wondering what would cause someone to commit such a senseless act of violence like we just witnessed. As we mentioned last broadcast, each month the House of Yahweh publishes a free newsletter and magazine called The Prophetic Word. Both are packed with answers and solutions to these troubling issues and many more. Find out how you could protect yourself and your loved ones.
Call or write the House of Yahweh today and request your free subscription of the Prophetic Word magazine and monthly newsletter. The address is the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604, or call 1-800-613-9494. For all calls outside the United States, please call the number on your screen.
Stay tuned. Up next is Yeshua Hawkins. For YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Katan Alexander.
Where news is not just news, it's prophecy. Thanks for watching.